We just got some news about a new scene happening in Avengers Doomsday, this time with the Avengers, the X-Men, and Doctor Doom. Now, we've heard about a lot of scenes in Avengers Doomsday so far, but we haven't exactly heard too much about how the Avengers and the X-Men are going to interact with each other. When Avengers Doomsday was first announced, we heard early reports that the Avengers were going to fight the X-Men, and we would get that classic Avengers versus the X-Men storyline for just a little bit in the movie. And we assume that's when they first meet each other. We know that Doctor Doom is going to attack the X-Mansion using Sentinels. So what I predict is that when the Avengers show up to their universe, because that's what we heard is going to happen, they're just going to assume they're a threat like Doom was. But the scene we're going over today is about the Avengers and the X-Men working together, particularly around Sentry and Doctor Doom trying to manipulate Sentry and use him to fight the others. Now, we've heard a little bit already about Sentry interacting with Doctor Doom, and I think Sentry is actually going to be how we find out a little bit about Doctor Doom's backstory. Just like in the Thunderbolts when Yelena or John Walker touched Sentry, we saw a little bit into their past. I think the same thing is going to happen with Doctor Doom. But this new report says that Doom is going to weaponize Sentry and the Void. According to the insider James Mack, who has been leaking a lot of information about Avengers Doomsday, he states that Bob, or Sentry, cannot use his powers without the Void taking control of his body, leaving him more fearful and insecure as he is currently the strongest hero/Avenger alive, and the Avengers need him for this new threat. Now, the new threat is obviously Doom, and the post-credit scene for the Thunderbolts did indeed show us that at least he is afraid to use his powers, because he is afraid that the Void will be unleashed again and he won't be able to control it. But here's where this gets really interesting. Bob might have some help in the form of a mutant, a psychic mutant, and that is in the form of Professor Xavier. And I know what you're thinking already. We don't want to see Professor X die again, and I'm right there with you. I really don't want to see that happen again, because the last time he tried to get into somebody's mind on screen, that was the mind of the Scarlet Witch, and that didn't work out for him. Will Marvel make us watch yet another Professor X death? We'll have to wait and see. But the insider continues with his report and states, in Avengers Doomsday, Doom exploits his fragility and fear, creating chaos among heroes, pretending to help, manipulating them into fragile puppets before revealing himself as the true villain. Now, at this point, we've heard many different insiders state that Doctor Doom is indeed going to manipulate the Avengers. Well, heroes in general, but specifically the Avengers, because they're the ones who are going to realize he looks exactly like Tony Stark. Maybe the X-Men in their universe had a Tony Stark, but I'm assuming probably not. And again, the fact that they brought RDJ back specifically to play Doctor Doom, and the fact that the Russo brothers said no to Robert Downey Jr. asking them to return to direct this film for a year until the perfect idea for a script came along, one, comforts me that this movie is going to be great because they said no for a year until finally getting the right idea, and two, it tells me that they are indeed going to use the fact that it's RDJ playing both of these characters, once Iron Man and now Doctor Doom, as a plot point in the movie, and using it to manipulate them makes sense. But he continues with the report stating, from pre-viz, tech-viz, and post-viz I've seen involving the Sentry, it seems a heavy trigger in Bob will cause the monster Void to take over. Not like in the Thunderbolts, we're talking about the creature Void. Now, we kind of did see the creature, the Void, in the Thunderbolts, but it came in the form of basically a shadow Bob within the Void. But recently, some leaked concept art came out for the Void, and it did look pretty monstrous, and it looks like the Russo brothers are probably going to go with this version in Avengers Doomsday over the version that we saw in the Thunderbolts. And it's not really different. The Void can take many different forms, so it's not like they're going to be changing it up a lot from what we saw in the Thunderbolts as far as concept goes. It'll just simply change forms and be more monstrous, which I'm totally here for. But this is where Professor X comes in. He then states, and the Professor X, in a mental battle, will attempt to end the Void once and for all, preventing Bob/the Void from killing all the heroes. And even replying to a post that says, which one are you most excited for? I do expect the Russos' take on the Void to be more terrifying, and they do show the concept art that I was mentioning that was released for the original plans for the Void, and he said it's that Void I'm talking about. So a big monstrous Void villain, essentially. And that does seem very Doom-like, manipulating Sentry/the Void to harm the other heroes, while at the same time he's trying to convince them that he's actually trying to help This also makes me think that perhaps it's Professor X that is the one who realizes that Doom is not good going inside of Bob's head, presuming he lives, and I swear he better. Now, if this is the case, it makes me think that perhaps Dr. Doom really is in that Fantastic Four ship at the end of the Thunderbolts, because if the Fantastic Four gets there first and they see Doom, they're obviously going to say, hey, that's not whoever this Tony Stark guy is, that's Victor Von Doom. That's the guy who kidnapped our son. So it would make sense that Doom would be in that Fantastic Four ship and he gets to the Earth 616 universe first. And perhaps that's how the Fantastic Four get there. They track some type of energy, perhaps the power cosmic that their son apparently has. They track that to Earth 616 and that's how the Fantastic Four arrive. But going back to Charles Xavier trying to help Bob with the void in his mind, this actually is a pretty big tie-in to X3 and how Professor X essentially tampered with Jean Grey's mind, putting psychic barriers in it. Perhaps that is what Charles' plan is here. Perhaps he can put barriers inside of Sentry's mind to keep the void away. In the comics, the way that they actually get rid of the void is essentially erasing Robert Reynolds' mind of any knowledge that he has about Sentry, about the void. And that's what they decide to do. So he has no recollection that he was ever this hero called the Sentry. He has no recollection that he has powers even. And this does indeed get rid of the void, but it also gets rid of the Sentry. But perhaps that is actually the plan. If Dr. Doom is manipulating him and you have the Avengers and the X-Men and a bunch of heroes capable of taking on Dr. Doom if the Sentry is out of the way, then perhaps the goal is essentially to get inside Sentry's mind and erase the knowledge that he has powers, which would kind of take him out of the equation. It would get rid of the void. And in the comics, Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Strange and a lot of people are involved in this, so it would kind of check out and be pretty comic accurate. The only question is Charles really willing to do this after the mess that he caused in X3? Now, we don't know if it's the same exact timeline. We do assume Famke Janssen is going to return as Jean Grey, which means that she wouldn't have died in X3. Plus, Days of Future Past did happen. Who knows what that changed? So maybe that all didn't go down. However, I still feel that Professor X would still be kind of cautious about it, just to not have another Jean Grey Phoenix situation. Because the situation is very similar. A person with immense powers essentially fighting an alter ego. It does make Charles Xavier the perfect person that is equipped to deal with Bob / the Sentry / the Void. I just wonder how it's going to work out. And if you are Dr. Doom, you can clearly see that the Sentry is going to be the strongest out of everybody. And weaponizing the Sentry is something that Dr. Doom would do. And this also kind of does solve a problem, which is the Sentry is just really too strong right now in the MCU. He is essentially invincible. That's why he has the Void, because it nerfs him a lot. If the Sentry was fine, if it was just Bob and he didn't have the Void or any of that with him, he would be unstoppable. We saw what he did to the Thunderbolts in the Thunderbolts film. He's invincible. He has psychic abilities. He can fly. He can melt things with his mind. We saw him melt John Walker's gun. He could probably take Doom out pretty fast if he got the drop on him. Now, we don't really know how powerful Doom is in the MCU. Hopefully he's a very powerful sorcerer, but it's easy to see how the biggest threat to Dr. Doom could be Sentry. So taking him out of the equation would probably be Doom's priority, and then manipulating him and the Void to manipulate everybody else. I'm definitely here for this, but I just really hope that Professor X does not die on screen again. With our luck, he probably will. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about this new report and this new scene in the comments down below. Does this make sense to you? Do you like this? And does it make you more excited for Avengers Doomsday? Let us know in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel and Avengers Doomsday news. You can also find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.